Starbucks, it's not anymore. They're dropping that requirement. Well, that's kind of a big change. This is in direct contradiction to Joe Biden's personal orders. Just a few weeks ago, Biden warned of, quote, a winter of severe illness and death. What an upbeat guy he is, but only for the unvaccinated. And yet at Starbucks, the unvaxxed baristas are still standing, still pouring those lattes, and now they're getting back to work. What does this mean? Well, it means they've decided the senile mannequin in the White House knows less about COVID than they do, and they may be onto something. Meanwhile, in Israel, which is probably the most vaccinated country in the world, scientists just contradicted everything the administration has been telling us for a full year about vaccine passports and natural immunity. So a study in Israel, which no one has yet denounced as misinformation, found that 4 vaccine shots do not work as well against Omicron as natural immunity does. And one of Israel's top vaccine experts admitted that natural immunity in general is highly effective. Watch this.
Are you now of the view that vaccine passports should be got rid of, phased out, because they're no longer relevant in the Omicron era?
I tend to think so. Even if the Omicron actually is causing a lot of not breakthrough infection, but reinfections, people that were vaccinated and secondary infections, etc. We have to take into account that still the virus is better at immunizing than the vaccine.
Better pull that man off Twitter. What does he know? That's Professor Cyril Cohen. He's the head of immunology at Bar-Ilan University. He's a member of the advisory committee for vaccines for the Israeli government, and obviously a thought criminal. What did he do? Well, he looked at the data and concluded that scientists have made a major mistake. Quote, the virus is better at immunizing than the vaccine. Oh, where have you heard that? Well, we've known that for more than a year. Our own CDC found that natural immunity provided more protection against Delta, that variant of COVID, than vaccination did. Professor Cohen went on to apologize for the biggest mistake of the pandemic, shutting down schools and forcing children to stay home, which destroyed a generation. It turns out there was no scientific basis for doing that at all. It was all teachers' unions wanting more time off. Omicron, the professor said, will turn this pandemic into the endemic phase. It'll be like the flu, a widespread but mild illness. Everybody gets it, very few are bad. They've always been useless.
Cloth masks are not appropriate for this pandemic. It's not appropriate for Omicron. It was not appropriate for Delta, Alpha, or any of the previous variants either.
And yet Joe Biden is bragging that he's sending every American a mask. So every American can be safe for one day. This is pathetic. Why are they doing this? It's a question worth asking, especially since Joe Biden knows that masks don't work. It's why he takes his mask off when it irritates him. Here he was just a few days ago.
What we've been able to do is been able to generate significant federal help.
So Joe Biden knows masks don't work. CNN knows that masks don't work. Joe Biden's COVID advisors knows that masks don't work. The country of Great Britain has admitted that in public. So with that in mind, here's what the Biden administration has been saying about masks for the last 2 months. Watch the lies.
Masking. Masking is an important tool to control the spread of COVID-19. And when you're indoors in public places, you should wear the mask.
CDC continues to recommend that any mask is better than no mask, and we do encourage all Americans to wear a well-fitting mask.
I think the idea of taking masks off, in my mind, is really not something we should even be considering.
They act like there's no cost to covering your face. But the truth is, human beings need to see one another's faces. It's not optional. We pretend that it is. Any society that ignores natural imperatives, things as basic as seeing other people's faces, will destroy itself and the people who live within it. Everyone knows that. What you just saw is not science. It's mental illness. Joe Biden apparently doesn't know that, and that's why even Starbucks no longer listens to him. Matt Walsh is host for coming on. Look, to criticize the president of the United States, even someone you don't like and didn't vote for, who's clearly as nasty as Joe Biden is in some ways to diminish your own country. So I just want to preface this by saying it's sad to watch this because you want your leader to be strong, even if you don't agree with him, and he's weak. But how long, my question to you is, can this pretense continue? If this guy's running things, he knows what he's doing, you should follow his commands.
I think the pretense was over the first day he took office. I mean, this is the consequence of electing or, having a moldy cantaloupe as president of the United States. And it creates this kind of perfect storm that turns this into the most out-of-touch presidential administration in American history. Because on one hand, you have a president with literal dementia who lost his mind. And even, by the way, before he lost his mind, he still didn't really have one. He had, he was a man of no will of his own, no value system, just always triangulating. And then he lost his mind. And on top of that, then we've got his handlers, the administration itself, the people calling the shots, who hate the American people, don't care about our problems. And that's why they send this doddering old fool. While most of us are worried about inflation and gas prices, they send it down to Georgia to rant about the fact that we all need voting rights when we already have them, and to call most of us racist. And so this is the situation that we're facing. And I think it raises a question when it comes to COVID and the policies around COVID. Basically, there are two ways of looking at this. Either these are failed policies and they're sticking with them because they don't want to be embarrassed and they can't admit they were wrong, or the policies have not failed at all, and in fact, this is the effect they were supposed to have. This is all about them gaining power. It's about reordering society. It's about destabilizing institutions. And so, either way you look at it, it's certainly not
voluntary arrangements. By their definition, you consent to be governed. You can't govern without the consent of the people you govern, period. And if people decide that they don't consent anymore, that they're not going along with it, you could get some real destabilization. Do they not get that?
Well, I think that they just don't care. The problem is, again, they don't. When you have people leading a country or a city or any institution, and they hate the people that they're leading, I think this is what you end up with. Look at all the cities that are falling apart across the country, led by people who do not like the people that they're leading, and this is the logical consequence of that, I think, in part.
Amazing. Matt Walsh, thanks so much. Great to see you tonight.